We got an article here, a news story here, a very interesting news story via Zero Hedge, but basically the story is everywhere. At least it's everywhere where free speech is promoted and proper journalism is promoted. You won't find this story on the Washington Post, on the New York Times, or on CNN, MSNBC, or any of that stuff, even though this does deal with the Washington Post coming out 2 months after the fact and admitting that it was lying in a story about Trump and the election in Georgia. The title of this article says, Trump issues response to the WaPo election call hoax. Democrats cited find the fraud in impeachment brief. So let me start a little backwards here and go down towards the middle of this article. I'll put a link to this article down below so you guys can check it out and see what happens. But this is just basically more fake news and lies coming out of the fake news media. And now 2 months after the fact, they're finally coming clean and saying, yeah, we lied. So the article says the Washington Post has issued a massive correction 2 months after lying, misquoting former President Donald Trump in a phone call with Francis Watson, chief investigator with the Georgia Secretary of State's office. On January 9th, the Post reported that Trump told Watson to find the fraud. That's a quote, to find the fraud he claims happened during the 2020 U.S. election, that if she did, she'd be, quote, a national hero. So the Washington Post said that Trump told Watson, who was the chief investigator with the Georgia Secretary of State's office in Georgia, Trump told her, find the fraud. That's a direct quote. And he said, you would be a national hero if you did so. That is what the Washington Post actually reported. That is what they did report via what? Take a guess, guys. Via what? Anonymous sources. Of course, those pesky anonymous sources that they always seem to find, and always those anonymous sources are always saying bad stuff about Trump. Those devilish, clever, elusive, all-knowing anonymous sources that the Washington Post, the New York Times, and CNN rely on so much. So, an actual recording of the call reveals Trump said no such thing. Bold. This is bold text from Zero Hedge. Quote, instead, Trump urged the investigator to scrutinize ballots in Fulton County, Georgia, asserting she would find dishonesty there. Reads the retraction with Trump adding that she had, quote, the most important job in the country right now. So Trump said, you have the most important job in the country right now. And the Washington Post spun it as Trump saying you'd be a national hero. The Washington Post said that Trump urged the investigator to scrutinize. The Washington Post retracted the story by saying that Trump actually urged the investigator to scrutinize ballots in Fulton County, Georgia, asserting she would find dishonesty there, while the Washington Post spun it back then as saying Trump told Watson, the investigator in Georgia, that she would find fraud. So that is how the Washington Post interpreted this. Let me read it to you again. Instead, Trump urged the investigator to scrutinize ballots in Fulton County, Georgia, asserting she would find dishonesty there. That's what the retraction says, adding that she had the most important job in the country right now. So we went from what Trump actually said, which is what I read you, to the Washington Post saying that Trump told her to find the fraud and told her she would be a national hero. Okay. Nowhere in this quote did Trump use the words national hero. Nowhere in this quote did Trump use fraud. Nowhere. But that's how the Washington Post spun it. Jack Posobiec says, breaking, Washington Post retracts massive story that falsely claimed Trump asked Georgia to find the votes. Quote, find the votes. The Post corrected both the headline and text within the article and wrote a subsequent report to explain how they received incorrect quotes from an anonymous source in December. This is what the Washington Post said. The newspaper's incorrect quotes were attributed to an anonymous source back in December. Audio of Trump's phone call with Watson came about after Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis announced a criminal investigation surrounding the former president's aim to overturn 2020 election results. Because of the criminal investigation, Willis requested that state officials keep documents that may relate to an investigation into attempts to influence the 2020 election. The New York Times previously reported via the Daily Caller. Meanwhile, CNN jumped on the bandwagon, repeated Washington Post lies that Trump wanted Watson to find the fraud, citing a source with the knowledge of the call. Okay, so what I just read you was not from the Washington Post. That was from the New York Times. That's what the New York Times previously reported. That is via the Daily Caller. So the Daily Caller is citing the New York Times here. So check out what happened. They actually kept audio records of what Trump said to Watson. But the Washington Post thought back then, 2 months ago, that they could spin the anonymous sources stuff because they thought no one would ever find out what was actually said and that no recordings were kept. But now we find out that recordings were kept. From Tsar Beckett Adams, this tweet sums it up. You all are missing the real story. Washington Post's correction of its Trump Georgia investigation's chief scoop. The real scandal, this is important, the real scandal is that a bunch of newsrooms claimed at the time they confirmed the details of the scoop with their own anonymous sourcing. NBC News said it confirmed the Post's characterization of the December 23rd call through a source familiar with the conversation. USA Today claimed a Georgia official speaking on the condition of anonymity to discuss internal matters confirmed the details of the call. Both the Washington Post and CNN initially reported that there was unlikely to be a recording of the call. Watson, however, found it in her trash folder, according to the Washington Examiner, and was first published by AP on March 11th. Officials in Georgia tried to delete the evidence that would exonerate Trump from a media lie, which led to criminal investigations against Trump. And you morons think that these guys played in the up and up when it came to counting votes. From Jack Posobiec, why did the Georgia Secretary of State delete the full audio of the call from Trump in the first place? It was only later found in a trash folder on a state computer. They tried to cover the whole thing up. So do you guys see what happened? My God. So the Washington Post spread fake news via these fake anonymous sources to damage Trump, to damage Trump supporters, saying that Trump was threatening the Georgia officials with all kinds of stuff. And he was telling this Georgia investigator to find, quote, find the fraud and find the votes, and she would be a hero, when he said nothing of the such. And they did all of this because they thought no record would be kept. No record would be kept. But we know here that Willis requested that state officials keep documents that may relate to an investigation into attempts to influence the 2020 election. So they requested to keep those documents. Those documents were later found in the trash folder of the computer. The documents, what documents are we talking about? The actual audio recording. So we finally, 2 months later, have the actual audio call recording, which was found in the trash of the computer. And it completely debunks the Washington Post claim. In other words, the Washington Post thought that there was going to be no recording, that there were no documents kept, and it was going to be able to spread whatever fake news it wanted to spread. They do this all the time. They do this all the time. They do it with Russiagate. They always do it with Syria chemical weapons. They do it all the time. They lie. They always lie. The Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, they use these anonymous sources that no one knows who the hell they are. These anonymous sources make these stupid claims. They spread these claims on their news outlets. The Washington Post writes about it. Then it gets picked up by the New York Times, then by CNN, then by MSNBC. No doubt about it that when the Washington Post prepares these articles, it contacts its mainstream media fake news buddies in the New York Times and CNN and MSNBC so that they can get ready to propagate and to further throttle up whatever fake news they're going to publish. So they're all in the loop. Make no mistake about it, the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN, and MSNBC also have buddies at Twitter, Facebook, and Google, and they call them as well and tell them we're about to publish a story from anonymous sources that says Trump said this and Trump said that and Russiagate claims this and Ukrainegate claims that. And they do all this stuff. And the big tech companies get the inside scoop as to what's about to happen with the story so they can algorithmically blow it up. And there you get the whole thing going. The whole fake news thing starts to take off. Everything starts to trend. And then 2-3 months later, we all find out it's a lie. But after that, after 2-3 months, either the damage has already been done to Trump, the war has already been started in Syria, or God knows what else, and you can't go back. They do this all the time with these BS anonymous sources, and they're all in the loop. They're all working together. Fake news, mainstream media, big tech, the DNC, the Democrats, I wouldn't be surprised if the Democrats called the Washington Post and said, let's run an article to smear Trump in Georgia. And they fabricated this whole thing. Then they called their other fake news media buddies. The Post called the Times called CNN, MSNBC. Then they called their big tech buddies at Twitter, Facebook, Google, and they got this story to trend. And now they're retracting it. So we have an update here. Former President Trump has issued a response after the Washington Post admitted to publishing a report falsely accusing him of pressuring a Georgia official to find the fraud, a statement which was debunked by audio of the call, but not before it spread through left-wing mainstream media echo chambers like wildfire via DonaldTrump.com. The Washington Post just issued a correction as to the contents of the incorrectly reported phone call I had with respect to voter fraud in the great state of Georgia. While I appreciate the Washington Post's correction, which immediately makes the Georgia witch hunt a non-story, the original story was a hoax right from the very beginning. I'll put the article, once again, guys, the article will be down below, which has this statement. I won't read it out in full from Trump. Keep in mind that the Democrats cited this fake news, find the fraud quote, in their impeachment brief. They actually used this in their impeachment brief. The January 6th, after the January 6th events. So there you have it, guys. More fake news that we finally found out was indeed fake news. But 2 months after the fact, and the damage has already been done. Please don't believe anything these outlets say. And when they start spreading the fake news about Syria or Ukraine or whatever wars they're cooking up, when they start spreading the fake news about that, don't buy it. Don't believe it, and don't let people's lives. Don't let people get killed because of these guys. It's fake news. That's what I want to say, because here they completely derailed and smeared President Trump. But you know what's coming next: fake news about conflicts and false flags and all stuff like that. And it also works in reverse. They work together to hide the stuff about Biden. So it works in reverse. They don't report on the southern border crisis. They don't report on all of the gaffes and the mumbling and the bubbling of Joe Biden. So it works in reverse. Just like they post BS stuff about Trump via anonymous sources, and then they make sure it trends and it spreads. They do the reverse with Biden. They don't publish anything about Biden. They don't report about anything that Biden is doing. They don't report about all the crappy policies. And they work with big tech to make sure they suppress all the stories or videos or tweets about Biden. So it works in reverse as well. These guys are just evil people, guys. All right, that's the video. Look for the Duran's video channel down below. You'll find the link down below. Look for Alexander's videos down below as well. Look for the Duran shop links as well down below. Pick up some merchandise. This channel has been completely demonetized, so when you purchase stuff, it helps. PayPal, Patreon, subscribe, star as well to help out this channel. Take care.